Are we all there? Do you all have our images inserted into the file? Anyone without the images? Yes. Anyone without the images? Okay, I'm assuming everyone has the images, right? Except he doesn't have it. So we have the images, they're already in front, they're in front of the points, right? I would like to refer to them. So what we are going to do, we are going to highlight all the images. Okay? Let's highlight all the images, or we can highlight one by one, those that we can easily select. So I select these two images, then I right click, go to my display, then I send them back. As I send them back, it's like sending them behind whatever object that is behind them. So that they can go further back, and then the objects that are behind them can easily come in front. So since we want to read them, we can highlight all of them so that we have them sent back. So we shall continue for all images until you can see all the points.
Select similar.
Select similar. The command.
Select one, then select similar. Yeah, select one image. And after right click, press whatever option down. Select similar. Send to back, right click center.
Is the command.
Yes, how we done it. To this other project, I just begin from there.
We all have our points in front, at the front, at the top of the images, right? So the question is, what do you think, what would be the helpful, why do we need the images be there? And I think you can easily relate to our project. I think this also helps us to understand what you're working with, right? Someone asked me that question yesterday, and there are a lot of importances for us to have our images. The first one is that by just virtually seeing, before you even go to the field, if you didn't go to the field while they're picking the points, you can easily identify the activities along the alignment, right? So the activities can easily tell you how to probably categorize your alignment. Obviously, you do not have the profile to either classify whether it's a rolling or it's a flat, but at least you know where the urban areas by looking at the concentration of some development along a certain area. You find this one is a bit densely populated in terms of development of structures than a place somewhere like this. So that gives us a bit of information to understand what you're dealing with. As you can see, now we are heading from a town to a village, and easily you can easily identify that when you come in here, our center line already offsetted from the existing structure. My assumption is that however much these are generated from the online maps, but you find that there is a little bit of inaccuracy. There is a little bit of inaccuracy within the satellite views, because remember the globe is round and then there is a little bit of displacement sometimes. So yeah, these are the actual placement for that road. And if I'm to insert my map on, area map. So yeah, let me turn on my hybrid. The hybrid design that shows it will show you the road, including the names of the roads. So let me let it load for a minute. Okay. So you have the different namings for the road, and as you can see, they have that wine, the whitish lining. So I'm going to delete one of the pictures. Let me see which one I could probably delete. This one. Okay. As you can see with the images, there's a little bit of displacement from here, right? This hybrid shows that this is actually where the road is. Now the person that picked also shows a different point. Sorry. Yeah, these ones also, yeah, the surveyors usually pick the actual one, but as you can see, there is always displacement within the satellite views. It's just it's an estimation of where would they anticipate the road to be. Obviously here it shows also this T junction is also displaced. As you can see, it's a bit far away from the actual road, including the satellite image. It's also quite a bit different. But at least that gives you a little bit of small information to understand what you're working with. Equally, you can even add things like the names of the town so that you understand the councils, sorry, the areas you're working with and be able to see them. If you're just doing, like, say, a desktop survey, just running analysis or understanding what sites you're working with. So the names of the roads, the names of the counties, there is multiple information you can be able to generate. Anyway, so that is about our imagery and our global location. That's how we get to use the information that we have. So I'm going to turn this off. Also, I'm going to turn these maps on so that we can proceed from here. Let me remove them. Maybe I can just select similar so that everything is highlighted once and for all. Let me not display them. Or let me just delete them since we can bring them back and forth. Okay. So let's get something that is clear so that we can keep on. So our next target, our next item on the agenda is producing the surface. So surface is still, we are dealing with ground data or ground information. So to creating a surface, you'll come to this icon for surface, then you come to create a surface. Right? Are we all there?
No.
Not yet. Are we all there? Do you have this window open? Okay. You have this window open. That's my assumption. If you don't have it, we have closed everything, right? Yes, I see someone with a question. You have a pending question? Okay. So we come to surface. This is the icon. Okay? We come to create surface. Right? So the surface you're going to create is a triangular surface, right?
Okay.
It's a triangular surface or a thin surface. In some software, they display them as thin surface. Sorry? I repeat. Okay. This is the icon of surface. Equally, you can go still to prospector, you come to surface, then right click and create surface. Same method. Okay? There are those with the menu bar up here. You have an extra menu bar. You can equally just go to surface and create surface. So there are multiple options for doing that. So I'm going to continue. Let me hide the menu bar. I'm going to use this icon, ground data, surface, create surface. So it's going to be a triangular surface. Why are we using a triangular surface? It's because the method of calculation for estimating the different points of the surface, and we are going to be triangulating or connecting these points together with it's a triangular irregular network form of surface, whereby they use to estimate the points, the areas that don't have the points that they picked, to estimate their levels or their heights. So in this case, if I'm to demonstrate, if I want to create a surface between these points, I can create this, I can connect this point to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So I kind of create a mesh between them. You understand? So that mesh is continuous, right? And each or every point you see in the middle is trying to estimate the elevation within this area, and then they will try to make a mesh which will represent the terrain. So let me just delete this, then we shall look at the surface once it's created. So we come to create surface. It's going to be a triangular surface. Then the name of the surface, we are going to call it Mitiana. Mitiana. Let me call it Mitiana surface, or I don't know, Mitiana e.g. existing ground surface, right? That's better. Then if you want to describe what your surface is, you can add a description that's defining, because if someone is going to be, if you're going to be sharing your file with some other experts, they need to understand what that surface meant. So you can add a little bit of description. Could be a road surface perhaps, as your description. And this will be attached to that surface. Road surface that is existing. Then the style, we can choose the style. There are multiple styles. Once you click on the values, we are changing generally these values. These are our default reference points. These are our values. So this is the information we have. The information we're feeding in the terms of value is that word. So the style that you are going to be using, we can choose for the contours. Excuse me. You can choose to display weather borders only. I don't know if you have all accessed that. How to access that is that you click on this value, then you click on these three dots, right? Once you click on the three dots, they are going to allow you to open this small window. Then it's that small window that you can be able to access all your styles. So you can prefer, it depends on how you want to display your contours. Your contours, you can have the major contours being a difference of 5, then the minor contours being at a difference of 1 meters. So perhaps you can use, either it could be a design surface or it could be a background surface. A background surface can mean an existing surface perhaps. Later we can create corridor surfaces which are going to be design surfaces. So I'm going to choose this one, which is 1 meter. Oh, perhaps I can first choose contours and triangles. Contours and triangles is going to help us to show the mesh of the surface that we're going to be creating. So I'm going to click OK, And for the render material, you can choose a render material, but since we are working in 2D and it's wireframe, it's not necessary for now. So I'm going to leave that by default. I'm going to click OK. Once I click OK, here we didn't have any plus sign or a drop down sign. So right now we have a drop down sign showing Mitiana EG. And now once you click on that further, you drop down and we have other surface definitions. That includes masks, watersheds, and definition. So you can define your surface with other parameters. Once I highlight this further, you realize that we have other parameters that are defining our surface. That includes boundaries, break lines, contours, digital elevation models, files. We have drawing objects. That means that you can define your surface using all these parameters. Most likely we would like to generate our surface using our point group. So I'm going to click on point groups, right click, then I'm going to add a point group, right? Once you click on point groups, remember we created a group initially, which was called Mitiana, once we were importing in, right? That is the first option, where you click on the point group. Are we all there? Not yet? So that is the first option. The second option, usually some people do not want to first create the points, importing in points. I want to create my surface effective immediately. So what I do, I come to a point file. Then instead of, perhaps I want to create a surface with the points that are not already existing within the what? Within the drawing. So I'll just come, then I can edit and I can add a certain what? A certain file for my points. Then you remember this importation criteria that we use, right? So since you are pretty familiar with this, I can just come, since you already have the files, since you already have the points files imported in, then we can just choose adding in the already existing point groups. So I can just perhaps click all the points that I might have. Remember we have multiple point groups. So I can just click at all points, then I click OK. Then I can be able to generate now. My surface is going to be defined by this point group. So they're going to map out my surface, they do the calculations, then they do a triangulated interpolated network. So as you can see, these are irregular triangles, right? And that's what I was talking about. So we have a mesh that is created by connecting all the points together to form a certain surface. So do we all have this? We all have this, right? Not yet. You go back to your surface definition, then you go to your point files, right click, add. You click at all points, then you add. Or you can actually even click on the point group that you're interested in. You can be importing in different point groups that are defining different roads. So you can just choose, but since this is generally for all the roads, then it's better you highlight for all the points so that you don't miss out on any point. So once you have all that, then you can be able to form. Now we have defined our surface by giving it points to be interpolated. Therefore we have a surface being displayed that way. Do you all have this? We don't. Cool. Are you okay? For those that are lost, please raise up your hands. I can know where you are. If you're not yet lost, sorry? I said render materials, you can leave render materials out since you are not really going to be working in 3D. It's a 2D architecture. Remember, we are working in wireframe. This is drafting works. So render materials works later once you you're defining here. If you go to realistic, then they are going to be displaying your surface using that render material of choice. Yeah. But since you are dealing with draftworks mostly, we can still choose this. Once now you're exporting your surface to a different software that renders, they're going to be able to identify that option of render materials, and they're going to extract those render materials so that they can be able to display your surface according to that render material. So this is what we have so far. I hope everyone has this, right? So we have other things that we are going to be looking at. Now, in cases where you have a detailed elevation model from a surveyor, you can actually just add a detailed elevation model directly from here. And like I said, the site that usually get detailed elevation model is called UGS, sorry, USGS, where they have a file extension called .dem. So you can choose once you have, or you can choose a TIFF file if you have downloaded one of them. But since most of the surveyors work with point files, then it's okay to work with point files for now. So after we are done with this, we can explore other styles. For example, once I highlight my surface for now, I can be able to come to surface properties. This should be able to display. If I click on surface properties up, or I click on the drop down menu, then I access the surface properties. We have our surface styles. This includes these other ones that we were exploring initially. So I'd suggested that we use contour 1 and 5 meters. Render material can be by layer. We can leave that out for now. Then I click OK. So as you can see now, we have contours running within our surface. As you can see, these are all contour lines defining our surface. So if you want to view how the surface looks like, I'll highlight this, right click, come to object view. Then I can be able to look at how the shading is done. So I'm going to repeat. This is the shading of the surface. There are different render versions of displaying what you're working with. Let me use shaded perhaps. So you can move around and see how your surface is going to look like. You appreciate how your surface looks like. This is our surface, but as you can see, it's created by connected triangles. Okay. So how to view this? You're trying to view how perhaps your surface looks like. You highlight on the surface. You right click. Sorry. Highlight on the surface. I right click. Then the second last option, which is object viewer, should be able to show you different render ways of visiting the surface. You can even view them in 3D in case you need to. Are we all there? Can we actually appreciate this? Have you all seen our surfaces? Okay? You're good to go? I'm going to exit this. So we are going to add a few edits on the surface. By one, the first one is limiting it by boundaries. We are going to add boundaries onto our surface. So you can only add boundaries if, say, we have a polyline to refer to as a boundary. So we are going to draw a polyline around the surface. I'm going to draw it a bit quickly because the surface is a bit longer. The road was a bit longer, so I'm going to run it a bit quickly. Sorry, still having some lag. So it's a bit, I think it's a bit lagging behind. It's a bit unresponsive. Let me just wait for it to respond. But were we all at this point? No? So in most cases, what causes some of these lags is that when you have this snapping tool on and you go to a point that have, if you go to an area that has multiple points, it tends to snap to all the points, so that makes the computer calculate too many commands at the same time, and that's making the lag. So what I do, I usually turn off this snapping cursor rule. It's far much easier while you're doing the navigation within the software. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the boundaries quite a bit quickly. So I'm going to be drawing my my polyline around this area. So I want to limit my surface to a certain point. For example, I'd like to limit my surface to up to this area, so that you can be able to perhaps follow the arrangement of the road. So I'm going to do this a bit quickly so that you can move on. Okay. So I just don't want the surface to cross this area. That's why I'm drawing it as a boundary. May not really be necessary if everyone drew it, but if you can, if you're fast enough, you can literally draw. You follow together. You're generally just drawing a polyline around the surface, trying to limit it in terms of boundary. So this can work, for example, areas where you have like ponds. You're limiting a certain area where they didn't pick. So
can I just offset it at once? The other side. I'm doing it again, doing it at once. I love doing
So I'm going to draw it continuously so that I can be able to join from the first area, from the first point that I began with. So just trying to make sure that all the points are within the boundary. Don't miss them out, because these all define the surface. So if you're fast enough, you should be able to catch up. Yeah, I'm almost done. So once I reach here, now I can't snap to this. Now I can easily activate my snap tool. Now remember transparent commands. I'm supposed to be placing my polyline. But the transparent command is that since I am reading the command for the polyline, I can still click on this icon and then it activates. Then I enter. Once I enter, it's a polyline, it becomes a continuous object. So when I'm still like in my polyline command and I press on one of these items, that is like executing a transparent command in that area. We usually use them like in our day-to-day activities, but you never get to realize that it's a transparent command. I can be, say, drawing a polyline, but then I choose to zoom in or zoom into a certain window perhaps. Now, when you're zooming in while you're already drawing a polyline, that is a transparent command. Okay? Anyway, so do we have our polyline closed? You'll be as fast as possible because these are just preliminary basic designs. So once I am done, right? Those are still drawing, you can keep on. Once I'm done with that, I'll come to my surface, Mitiana definition, then I'll go to my boundaries, right click, add boundaries. And I'm going to choose the type is going to be an outer boundary, negating whatever is outside, then it's going to be an undestructive break line. So I'm breaking off the surface not to cross to the other side. So once I do that, I click OK, then they're going to let me highlight the object with which you are limiting, or the break line with which we are limiting our surface to. Once I click on this object, it will calculate, and then you find that your surface is only limited by these areas that are labeled with the polyline. Okay, and then once I move this polyline toward this side, as you can see, my surface, they show me a warning error showing that this surface is outdated. That means that it's not up to date with the differences in the edits with the boundary. So what I do, right click on the surface, then you rebuild the surface, then you can be able to catch up to the boundary. Or equally, you can right click, then you build automatically, so that every change that you make can be able to be adjusted quite a bit quickly. So once I did for rebuilding automatically, once I move this boundary up to here, so if I try to move this boundary, say there, it can always rebuild automatically and cut automatically. Okay? So I know most of you are not yet there, but this is what we have so far. I'm trying to define the importance of us having boundaries. You can be able to limit for us. Do you all have that? So as you can see, once we added boundaries, our boundary was able to activate this black dot, which shows that there has been an edit on the boundary. Still up to them. Still up to them. Is there anyone that has failed to draw the polyline? Then you can seek for help. Are we all there? Do you all have the polyline? Have we all enclosed the polyline? Can we all enclose the polyline? You can draw it roughly. Maybe if you have you have some good time on you, you can draw it later during your. But I just wanted to demonstrate the effect of having boundaries. Obviously, I could have made it a bit more accurate if that was the purpose, but I drew it a bit roughly. So you just make sure that whatever you opened, you make sure you close, so that it becomes one continuous object. Are we okay? Engineers at the back, we fine? Godfrey, are we good to go? Oh, okay. Crispus, you good? Okay. Alright, so that's for the boundaries. Alternatively, once you want to limit your surface, I'm going to delete this boundary. Once I delete it, as you can see, we no longer have this defined by the boundary. Remember, the biggest concentration we want is this area. And as you can see, the creating of this surface was an estimation of drawing triangles from one closest point to the other. So you can see these areas are all inaccurate because they are not picked. So they are just estimated areas and they are not as useful per se to our surface. So we are going to continue to edit the surface. The other alternative is you highlight the surface, you come to your surface profile, then you go to contours and triangles, and I click OK. Once I have my contours and triangle lines, right? I'm going to repeat. Let me just go ahead. I come to edit my surface. I come to delete lines. Then I can be able to delete these lines. And I click enter. These lines go out. Then I can only be limited by the area that we were initially concentrated in. So I can be able to delete some of these lines so that I can create the initial surface that we had in mind. So these are all these other areas were all estimated areas. So I can easily just clean my surface using that method. I highlight all the triangles that are not as useful. Click enter. Now this also takes some while to clean because it requires you to be as keen as possible once you're highlighting your lines. Just need to be careful so that you don't delete lines that also connect important points. Okay. So I'm going to repeat this step by step so that you can be able to catch up. I was just trying to show you, okay? So let me repeat myself. So you highlight the surface, right? You come to surface properties. You come to, okay, you look on the drop down. You come to surface properties. Then on the surface style, remember styles and labels. This time you're dealing with surface display style. This is how we want to look at our surface. So you can either look at your surface in terms of contours, you can either look at your surface in terms of triangles and contours. So you come and choose triangles and contours, right? So for triangles and contours, I'm going to highlight triangles and contours. Then you should be able to visualize something like this. Obviously you have the triangles also with a little bit of the contours in the same area. Okay? So once you have that, you can now just highlight the surface. You come to edit surface, then you come to delete lines. Right? So once you have this triangular cursor activated, then to highlight you have to click from the right going to the left. Once you click from the left going to the right, it doesn't really work, especially on my side. So I have to do that. Then I highlight. Now this is highlighted. Now for you to delete, you don't use the delete button, but you instead click enter so that they can execute the delete command. Okay? So we can do that for some of these areas. Once I click from the left to the right, it doesn't highlight. But once I highlight from the right to the left, it highlights the lines that I'm interested in to delete. So this is more of like cleaning up your surface to only look like the areas that were picked from the site. You're only getting the generic area that was picked from the site. So here we have a junction. This junction can be retained. You have trees being at the extreme end. Equally, you can just highlight all. So I can keep highlighting. I can highlight from there. Can come also this side. I highlight. So you can keep highlighting one by one, then you delete at once. For example, I'll highlight there, I'll also come and highlight around here. Just make sure that these lines that you're deleting are not the ones that are inside, the ones that are interconnecting your points. Now these ones that you're seeing that are highlighted, these are just contours, but they're not being deleted. These ones will be retained, but these lines that you're seeing in the middle here will be deleted. So I'll continue with my execution method. I keep highlighting all the lines that I don't want to create the surface with. Also highlight here. Just highlight as much as possible. So come and highlight this. Now these ones, the last lines that are connecting these points is this line here. So I'll just highlight from here going downwards. Just make sure that you're not highlighting all these lines that might be connecting to your points. So I'll highlight something like that. All these lines are highlighted. Then I also come to my extreme end, highlight all these lines. Then I press enter. Now my surface is a bit better, as you can see. The mesh now comes out properly. So I'll do that. Sorry, I have a question. Okay. The procedure. So the procedure is, remember, on our surface properties initially, we had this in 1 to 5, right? So that means that we are displaying contours initially. So when displaying contours, I'm sorry, I can't take it back to how it was looking initially. After you drawn the polyline, we drew the polyline and we had a boundary. Then I deleted that boundary so that we can have a different way of trying to. Here we're trying to limit our surface to a certain area, so that looks like the one that we are interested in, where they were trying to generate the points or they are picking the points. So that method is that you highlight or you click on your surface, then you come to the drop down. You click on the surface properties. It can only work if it is only in triangles and contours, or contours and triangles. So once you click on contours and triangles, that is in information. If you go to your menu bar, you're supposed to be clicking on information, not definition or analysis. These are different properties of the surface. So we are looking at the surface style in this way. So the surface style of interest is contours and triangles. Then I'll click on contours and triangles. Can be able to display those lines. So once I have those lines in check, and I need to delete some lines that are limiting my surface. Say, my surface is supposed to be ending here, connecting these two, say these 2 points from here up to here, and therefore also connecting from here up to here. But then we have extreme points that are connecting, for example, from here up to here, which is unnecessary. So what I will do, I will highlight my surface, come to modify, then you come to edit surface, you drop down, then you come to delete lines. So once I click on delete lines, they will bring me my cursor. My cursor is supposed to be in a square format. Then for me to select the line that I want to delete, it's more of like a highlight format. You click on one end on the right, then you keep highlighting while you're going to your left hand side. Then you limit to only those lines that you're interested in to delete. For example, here I want to delete up to this point. I do not want to cross this line here that is connecting to my point to another point. Then I'll click on this, right? Once I've highlighted all the lines that are outside of my boundary with which my points are connected, then I press enter. Once I press enter, they will execute the delete command. Therefore, those lines will be deleted. Okay? Are we good to go? In this case, you may not need to delete and try to make sure the surface is very perfect, but I need you to understand the basic knowledge behind that. Okay? So have we all successfully deleted something? If someone hasn't edited anything per se and you're finding difficulties, please raise your hands so that we can reach out to you. You have a question? The command is still active until you are done. That's what it's called. Now, my highlighting format. Let's press the right button. Not directly press the command. So it's just now is you write it. Can't delete your style. It's supposed to be the trial. When are you yeah. Now here, the next is where for example, when we and area where they have water bottle, but you can't go to the water anymore. So they are going to be water around. When this generation is going to be all those networks, it's going to form the given in the water. So what you do, you put it in there, and then you break it down by something around that. Then you give it to the shop, that is easier and easier. We have 70 lines. You don't have to put access to it. That means that we need grades. We will not just get the true of the profile. So, what is the profile in the lines? Make use of this like that, like the first person picture. So that one change. Even doing change under the screen. So when it's only you have to one code in Zoom yourself. It makes them serious. So you have to be able to all the people are
I just want to solve this problem.
So what you do which is So you can keep shaping it. So that it doesn't explode. You can use so that it that is inside wanted us to get the surfaces so that we can have breakfast. So are we all there? For those that are not there yet, we can catch up when we are having breakfast. So are we all there? Any questions, please? So the other frequently asked questions that I've received is that what is the difference between the boundary and the border? So what you see in the green, this that you see in the green, this is the border, right? And then you drew a polyline and you created a boundary using a polyline, right? So what you're doing with the polyline, and we created that and defined it as a boundary, as a boundary, is that boundary was restricting our border from getting outside of that area, right? So it created a new border along that boundary. It's a restriction. And now remember this type that we were choosing. If you remember, we had two types. Okay. It only showed one type, but it was an outside and outer boundary, right? It can also be an inward boundary. Imagine a place whereby they are collected points of surfaces, and in this area there are ponds, right? Or it's a lake or it's a river. And they can't go down inside the lake or the river or a pond to pick the points within the area, the water. So you're only picking points along the boundary of the water, but it's already within the area of the surface. So what happens is you can restrict with a border that shows inwards within that area, so that you cut that out. Remember, when you generate your surface, you're going to map out including that area and to show that it's a flat surface. Yet that surface, its elevation is unknown. So you can just create a border that is now inwards, or you create a break line. You get? So now those are the differences between the boundary and the border. So what is limiting here? Our end point of our surface is a border, and then is a boundary. So I'm going to move on a little bit quicker so that because we are lagging a bit behind. We're going to see later the surfaces where we're going to look at how to analyze our contours so that we can do a bit of surface analysis. Okay. They're telling me our breakfast is ready. It's better if our squad doesn't really get cold. So allow me to break you guys off. Once you get back, we can do this quite a bit quickly. Once you get back, we can continue from there. Okay? No, most of you got here quite a bit early. Let's have our breakfast now. Let's have breakfast now. Guys, let's go.
Stop recording us.